Hi there, I'm Martha Van Dam with Living Beyond, and you're walking with me today on Therapy Trails, where we talk about paths toward emotional and mental wellness. So this week I created a post that was about talking kindly and lovingly to yourself. And a comment that popped in from a LinkedIn friend was she made a comment and mentioned how hard that can be to break that habit, or kind of a how do you break that habit of talking ugly or mean to yourself. And that was such a great question, and it prompted me to think, well, then I just need to make a specific series about that, helping people know how do we break that habit of talking mean, talking ugly, talking hatefully to ourselves. So that today, number one, we're going to talk specifically about the first step in breaking that habit. And most of us, at some point in time, even if you're not struggling with it right now, most of us will admit that at some point in time in our life, we've had this habit of something goes wrong, we do something that we're not pleased with, proud of, or something, and then there'll be this kind of immediate thought in our head where we think something negative about ourselves. We may actually even go ahead and say it. And it looks like this, and I'm just going to use Olivia as an example because she golfs. And that's what she mentioned, that there might be something that happens in golfing, and then that immediate first response, without thinking about it, will be a negative or derogatory thought. And so I don't golf, but I can just imagine how that works. I can imagine that you're lining up, that you're about to take that swing, or you take that swing, and then you don't like what happens, and that immediate first thought you may have is, doggone it, why did I do that? What is wrong? What's wrong with me today? Those kinds of comments. And she mentioned, the way she mentioned it, I could tell she was saying that it's like this automatic fast response. It's not something that you think about and that you maybe even really believe, but it can be that first thought. Well, the reason that it pops up like that is that first thought, hairs in my face, is that it has become a habit. The brain has created this little path that as soon as there is a negative, as soon as there is something that doesn't go the way that we want it to, this little path that's been created, so our mind immediately senses that didn't go well, and zoom, it's on the path to say something negative and derogatory. So the first step in making a change is to become more and more aware of how often it happens. And you may be aware that you do it, but most of us, even when we're aware that we do it, are not aware of exactly how often we're doing it, or exactly in what circumstances we're doing it. And so your first step is getting a really clear picture for yourself of how often it happens for you, how frequently you're doing it, and under what circumstances. So I read this fabulous book a little while back, and the lady was describing, this was a woman who had a real difficult time with seeing herself in a good way as far as her body. And so she had been trained to be very body sensitive and to criticize herself if she felt like she had gained weight, she wasn't exercising enough. And so what she did to try to figure out how often am I talking to myself this way is she began to carry one of those little clickers that people use, counters, that they use in track meets. You click a little button and it keeps a running count. So she carried one of those with her in her pocket, and every time she realized that she was saying a derogatory thing to herself, you ate too many cookies, you're going to be so fat, blah, blah, blah. Whatever thought that she was having, she would count on that little clicker, hit one more little spot. And that way she was keeping a good thorough count of how often it was she was talking to herself that way during the day. In this particular story, I do not remember the exact detail or the exact number, but by the end of the day, she realized she had spoken to herself like that in the derogatory manner like over 600 times. It was clear that it was throughout the day. That was the constant language that was going on in her head. And the funny thing about it is that if anybody else were walking along behind us or beside us and they were saying those things to us during the day and we heard them with our ears, we would right quickly turn around and go, stop it. Either stop it or go home, but I don't want to listen to you anymore. And if they kept on, eventually we'd say, look, you could either quit, or I'm calling the authorities, or I'm doing something, but I'm not going to continue to listen to this from you. That's what we would do if it was someone else. But the funny thing is, when it's ourselves, our own mind, we don't realize it's happening. So this little exercise of the clicker was valuable for her because it helped her to understand. It helped her to understand and how often it was happening, and the process of watching for it and clicking taught her brain to start observing better how often or when it's happening. So I'm not suggesting that everyone go out and buy a clicker, but I am saying we want to come up with some way for you to be able to be tuned into how often and when it is happening for you. So the easiest way would be to stick in your pocket an index card and a pen or a pencil, and then just keep it with you all day. And every time you hear yourself say a negative, derogatory thing to yourself, you grab it out and make a hash mark, and it's done. Or create a note page on your phone. You likely have your phone with you everywhere, so create that notepad within your phone, and then every time you have a thought, grab out your phone, go to that page and click it. You won't have to do this for long for your brain to make the change where it now is watching for it, and that's what we're after. That piece is really, really important. So for our first step in our journey to manage the way we're speaking to ourselves and to teach us to speak more kindly to ourselves, our first step is to count and to train our brain to watch for how is it going to make changes if it's not even aware of when it's doing it. So that's what you're going to do. Whichever way works for you, it does not matter to me. What matters is that you do it and that it works for you. So I love the clicker idea. It's a great idea, but the index card is faster. Chances are good you've got an index card or the back of a used envelope close by that you can grab. So if you would grab one of those and get started on watching for exactly how often I do it, it won't take long, a day, 2 at the most, for you to have a good grasp and your brain to pick up on when it's happening. That's our first step for today, and we'll have more coming up soon in this series. Have a great day, and watch for those times that you're saying those things to yourself. Thanks, and bye-bye.